Jolinda Stevens here with Yoram Bauman. Did I get that right?
Yoram.
Okay.
Yoram.
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 Oh, Yoram. Okay. We will start again. I was worried about the Bauman part. Jolinda Stevens here with Yoram Bauman of Carbon Washington, the sponsor of the Carbon Tax Initiative. Thank you so much for talking with us.
It's my pleasure.
Yoram, as Unitarian Universalists, we recognize that our utter interdependence with nature, and we look to science as one of our sources of wisdom. We have a vital interest in the ways to reduce carbon emissions. Please briefly explain the initiative and the outcomes you expect to be implemented.
Yeah, I would love to. So I think there's a lot of energy right now around coal trains and stopping coal trains, and that's a very important thing for the in terms of a climate agenda. But it's also important to have something to be in support of, in addition to something, to saying no to the coal trains. And our campaign is something that we're hoping that folks will be able to say yes to, and it's actually based on what many economists, myself included, consider to be the best climate policy in the world, the revenue-neutral carbon tax in British Columbia, just to our north. So they actually had a right-of-center government that said, look, we want to do something about climate change, we don't want to grow government. So they implemented a carbon tax where you tax bad things like carbon pollution, and then reduce taxes on good things like jobs and income and savings and investment. That policy has been in place for 5 or 6 years now in British Columbia. It's successfully reduced carbon emissions. The economy is doing well in British Columbia. And so our proposal from Carbon Washington is to do something similar in Washington State. So our policy is to have a carbon tax. So it's a tax on fossil fuels. And then the money from the carbon tax, the majority of it would go to reduce the state sales tax by a full percentage point. So in very broad strokes, what we're doing is households will pay a few $100s more a year for fossil fuels and a few $100s less a year for everything else. And that'll provide incentives for people to shift their behavior in a way that's going to reduce carbon emissions.
So how would that affect people who are poor?
So other parts of our policy, so we have this 1 point reduction in the state sales tax, and that provides broad benefits to households and to businesses. A carbon tax is on the regressive side of the scale, but the sales tax is also on the regressive side of the scale. So you sort of have one regressive tax and you're using part of the money to reduce another regressive tax. The social justice aspect of it is we also have a portion of the policy that funds the working families rebate, which is a policy that's been on the books, signed by Governor Gregoire. It's actually never been funded. It would provide up to $1,500 a year for 400,000 working families in Washington State. It's a state-level bump up of the federal earned income tax credit. So we have $200 million in our policy to fund and increase the working families rebate. And so you have the sales tax reduction that's going to benefit low-income households, and then you also have this working families rebate, which is going to be terrific for a lot of working families in Washington State.
Okay, thank you. How does this compare with what you expect the governor to propose?
So our model at Carbon Washington is we're looking north to British Columbia, which again I think economists think is a really terrific policy. The governor my impression is looking more towards the south to California's cap and trade system, which is another way to put a price on carbon. So to some extent the two policies are similar in that they both want to put a price on carbon and use market instruments to protect the environment. I would say that the attraction of the BC system is that it's clear and it's transparent. I like to say that you can describe the BC carbon tax in a haiku. So carbon dioxide, $30 for each ton, revenue neutral. Right, so that's very simple. California's cap and trade system is a little bit more like war and peace. So there's a lot of complications in it, and we think our policy is better for low-income households, better for the business community, and better for the economy, and that it's going to do more to reduce carbon emissions.
Okay. So what could we as a state advocacy organization do to support the carbon tax initiative? So
our plan is to file a ballot measure in March of this coming year, so the governor's going to get a chance to push things in the legislature in January, and then if that succeeds, then we're done. Right? We have climate legislation. But if that doesn't succeed, then we're going to file a ballot measure in March, an initiative to the legislature, heading towards the legislature in January of 2016, and then eventually to the ballot in November of 2016 if necessary. So we would love to have your support. We need to do signature gathering. We're setting up groups around the state to promote this idea. We'd love to come and talk at your at your in your community, at your church, and spread the word about the campaign. So if you could go to our website, which is www.carbonwa.org, Carbon Washington, carbonwa.org. And there are places there where you can sign up for our mailing list. You can actually also go, we have a carbon tax swap calculator where you can go and enter information for your own household and see how much you'd save from the sales tax and how much you'd pay in the carbon tax. Most households come out sort of plus or minus a couple $100, which is really terrific. So I hope that you'll check out the website and the carbon tax calculator, and it's all at carbonwa.org.
Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.